clearly was a remarkable military achievement. Can you explain to us what the situation in this particular area is now, and what do you think are the prospects for this area being maintained by the Afghan government after our troops performance?
I can really only answer the first part. I'm aware that the SOTG subsequent rotations have gone back into Chinatu and they've found the area quite benign, largely, but the current situation as it is today, I'm unable to talk to that.
To what do you attribute that? The fact that you have managed to maintain that relative stability and peace in that area for so long?
I'm a believer in the overarching COIN strategy. It's, COIN, we make it very complex, but in reality, it's about the people wanting an alternative future, which in my mind is free from Taliban intimidation. It's not us that's going to win the fight, it's going to be them. We stand behind them and they have to reject them. So you can imagine the Taliban coming into Chinatu, you've got to look after it. No, last time the coalition were here, they defeated you soundly, and we don't like what you're offering. We don't need your intimidation. We like what the coalition and what the Afghan government is producing. And so there's going to be a degree of risk to the locals, but at the end of the day, they are the ones who need to reject the Taliban. They're so pervasive, but it's people power. We don't want your type of government, Taliban government, here in Chinatu. And we saw that up in Gizab. It was the population up in Gizab that did the uprising. We flew in to support them. We now have 30,000 people living, free from Taliban intimidation. And our role was then to provide that buffer to remove those Taliban leaders. So this is COIN 101.
You gave them the opportunity to
yes.
make that choice.
Yep, but at the end of the day, primacy of civil law, we stand behind them to reject the Taliban.
You mentioned a number of figures of Taliban casualties. One, did you get their leaders, kill or capture them? And two, is there a global figure for insurgent casualties from this?
I don't have any of the figures for casualties.
How about the leaders, the Taliban leaders?
We're still in the fight, so there's things that we need to protect, and it's important. I can say we are having a significant degradation effect on the Taliban leaders. And in 2002, when I was there, we were fighting some very senior Taliban leaders. We're now fighting some very junior Taliban leaders.
The expectation is that you're going to be there for years to come in an SOTG role. So what do you anticipate that being? Is it continuing to take out Taliban leaders, and that's the role for Australia?
Our role, as per that Shah Wali Kot example there, is to provide a buffer, to allow the fledgling government of Afghanistan and the people to get on their feet. And so we provide that buffer to protect them so they can get on with their lives and start to build those Afghan institutions that are critical for a civil society. And so that's what I see the SOTG doing in the future, is just keeping a foot on the head of the Hydra so that the Afghan people can create that self-sustaining environment in Afghanistan.
Can I ask the Major, was there a point during the operation where you thought, bugger this for a joke, we've got to get out of here? And what was it like? What actually happened when the bad guys took off and it ended? What actually did you observe at that point?
No, there was no stage where we thought it got out of hand. I guess the part that's missed is there's months of planning and analysis that goes into the conduct of an operation this scale. So, we were aware what we were getting into. And once the fighting died down, especially once the TSAC action occurred, while that was going on, we were gaining a better understanding of the population, speaking with them, and some of the tangible benefits we got was we actually got a better understanding of the tribal breakup of the area. We understand what the issues were in the region, and that enables us to then feed that to the Afghan government. And we had a significant number of Afghan elements with us, so that they could actually speak to the people and understand where how the government could help.
So when they withdrew, when the Taliban fighters started to leave, what was the signal for that? Did the local police guys say they're leaving, let's get after them, or how did that come about?
Sorry, I'm not quite understanding.
Well, when they broke off the fight,
yeah,
was it like a point where you said the white flag's gone up, they're out of here, let's get after them, or how did that?
No, not really, because it's like combat ebbs and flows. So through that first day when we got there, it ebbed and flowed through the day. There were constant small skirmishes. There was probing action. Then it built up at several different times. So what we were aware of is that they pulled out. There were a couple of opportunities where we potentially could have called in air support in areas to attrit them more heavily as they were withdrawing. However, the choice was made, and I think rightly so, that the threat to the civilian population and infrastructure was too great to do that. So we were aware where they were moving. We were aware that they were that their actions had died down. That's what tells us that their activity is dying off. But
That movement north, the counts that were coming back from the guys in the field, and I remember it very clearly over the radio, is that these guys, there's only women and children left, and the indications from the locals is that all the men are running. They were running.
Question for the Major. I mean, we've seen some of the vision today of the battle on the ground, but can you describe the feeling of being in the village there when it's around more than 50 degrees? How did it feel to be there? What was the experience like?
it's hard to say. It's one day of an entire rotation. So the conditions were demanding. The first day, there was a lot of battle going on, but the subsequent movements, through the, for the 4 days following, the conditions are, it's hot, you're going through a lot of water, and the terrain is rugged, and in that type of area, you need to own the high ground. So if you're moving up through the valley, then you're going to have elements that are going to be moving, through the mountains on either side, and that's tough going. And it's, I think, indicative of the capability of the guys that they can cope with those sort of conditions.
Gary, we heard there about just about how extraordinarily difficult this operation was, and you guys, for large periods of time, were flat on your stomachs, and as we said, digging holes with your eyelids. Can you give some of your personal recollections about what that was like? Do you guys get scared? Was it tense? Just how tense was it?
Yeah.
Reflections like that?
There was times there where we were all tense. It's just very hot and arduous, the condition we were trying to fight in. But it's more just part and parcel with my job, I think. I was just pretty much getting used to it, yeah.
Did you feel as though, when you were face down in those situations, that really your life was seriously under threat here?
I was always under threat. There's always that chance of something, the worst could happen, or unforeseen happening. But I think my training just got me through much for the job.
Had you ever been in a situation like that in the previous
Not
time?
that intense, no. By no means, no.
Bullets flying everywhere.
Definitely.
How close were they coming to you?
Oh, close enough, yeah. Within a couple of feet, if that. Very close.
What's your most vivid memory like? Is it the heat, the smell, the sound?
More so the heat, yeah. Definitely the heat, and just the conditions we were trying to work in and fight in. Yeah, it's just very dry and dusty.
You were in the sniper position in
Yep.
the Chinatu area. Did you know that you'd be there when you were inserted in there? Did you know you'd be there for that long? You obviously had difficulty in getting more water.
Yeah.
Did you have a sense where you thought, this is stretching on a little longer than I thought?
I always knew I was going to be there a while until the job was done. There's no real time limit on how long I was going to be there for. There's always scope for resupply when needed, but other than that, I knew I was going to be there a long time.
They were after your position because you had a key position.
Definitely.
For the sniping thing. So
Yeah.
what were you doing all day? Were you looking at people sneaking up at you, trying to ping them off as they were coming? Or what was the hour-by-hour role?
That was pretty much it in a nutshell. I was essentially the eyes and ears for the OC, trying to give him as much information as I can so he could paint his own picture of what was going on the ground.
Now you were able to, with your units, I don't know what the euphemism is, but basically kill Taliban people coming up on you. How
Yeah.
close were they getting?
Under 50 metres, the closest point, out to a K and a half away. Very close in some stages, yeah.
So because you're on the high point, they were sneaking up the hill,
Yeah.
trying to get rid of you
Yeah.
and getting within 50
They couldn't physically see us personally until they were pretty much right on top of us. knew we were there, but they couldn't quite establish where we were and how many were there.
Gary, was that the first time you'd had to perform that duty?
To that extent, yes. Yeah.
Did you ever think that you might be overrun in that position?
Always, yeah. The ground itself was very isolated, but because of the height and the visibility I had, for someone to overrun me would pretty much non-existent, yeah. Be hard to do.
Are you able to say how many of you there were there?
Not exactly, no.
Small group?
Small enough,
Yeah, there's a team up there.
yeah.
How would you characterise the intensity of the fighting compared with other similar situations?
Very intense, yeah. Very intense.
And you fired the first shot of all this
Possibly, yeah.
Yes.
from a sniper rifle?
Yeah.
It seems remarkable. Someone asked you before, what was your main memory? And you said the main memory was the heat.
Yeah.
Must have been bloody hot.
Was hot, definitely
That
hot.
was your main memory.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Colonel, you spoke a bit about the overarching mission, extending Afghan government influence, obviously winning the Taliban. Given there still is obviously that big Taliban presence, and it's likely there's going to be some sort of agreement down the track. Is that hard to take in terms of thinking of while you were there, what sort of victory that can be claimed?
No, I think the current commanders in Afghanistan have indicated that, you know, it's all about influence, and if we're able to influence the key leaders who do have influence over the population, they're willing to take those on-ramps and accept our terms and conditions and where we want Afghanistan to be in the future and where the Afghan people want to see it, then if they're willing to provide that influence to achieve that end state, then you need to do it. Not everything is black and white in war, and particularly in a complex environment like Afghanistan.
So I suppose it's another one of those modern warfares where...
Yes, yep.
And so, I mean, I guess in part it's just about trying to have every bit of influence you can get at that bargaining table, I suppose, is a part measurement for you guys.
Yep. As long as you've got a clear vision of where you need to be in the end and understand that, you know, war is a compromise. Nothing is black and white. And, you know, at this point, if you need to create an alignment and the terms are right, then and it's going to get you to your end state, then maybe that's what you need to do.
And you also spoke about a lot of those local villages, how thankful they were. At one group particularly, you said they were being sponged off from the Taliban. Did you encounter, or have any of you encountered much reluctance from locals, people that are not happy to see you?
You know, we did a mission earlier on in the tour where it was a very large task force operation into a valley. And the aim was to engage with the local population, and they were scared. They were very scared because they knew that if we had given them aid or medical supplies or food or they were seen to be even talking to us, then they could probably die that night when we left. So, you know, the brave ones came out and engaged and spoke to us, but they were very clear. They said, well, you know, if you're not going to be here tomorrow, then it makes it difficult for us. But then what we actually started to see was some of those locals stand up, and we saw some of the locals kill one or two of the Taliban in that valley several weeks later because they were sick of it. But we need, you know, the difficulty is we need to be there to help them over that first hump, and then they'll take control. Again, I think Gizab's a great example of that.
You mentioned that you were expecting 4 Taliban commanders in Tizak, and the number of those killed was significantly higher. Is it fair to say that you were pleasantly surprised by the impact of this particular operation on the
Absolutely,
Taliban?
absolutely, absolutely. We had created a situation where we were able to defeat the enemy on the ground of our own choosing. That's the name of the game in the profession of arms. So that we can attain that strategic and operational end state. That's what we do.
Major, I wonder, in the battle, what your sort of most vivid memory is of it all?
Yeah, look, it would probably be when the Taliban launched their first, coordinated assault on all the positions. It was just the noise. It was. We're aware that they were getting ready to do something, and we'd got ourselves into a position where we could, certainly defend ourselves as needed. But yeah, the noise of the machine guns and rockets, coming in at that stage is probably my enduring memory of it.
Have you heard anything like that before?
No, yeah, obviously we've had rockets and been fired at before, but not to that extent. Not where all up the valley in different locations. Had you heard the everything open up at one time? I hadn't heard it that coordinated before.
You mentioned some of the positions were heavy machine guns. That's big heavy machine guns, dushkas and stuff, isn't it? Or just light machine guns?
No, there were heavy machine guns around, but it was it was pretty hard to identify exactly what calibre was coming at you. So.
Just clarifying, are you able to give us a sort of overall number of roughly how many of your people were there and how many insurgents were there involved in the battle over the few days?
I don't think we were going to go specific with numbers.
The Commando side of things, we've already made that estimate of about 100 to 120.
Yeah. And insurgents, just to give us an idea.
Sir, you spoke on that before.
Yeah, for the Commando fight, it was parity. So, I said the force there was about 100, so parity. The force in TISAC, we're probably looking 3 times their number.
The only thing I'd say about the parity number is that the weight of effort was certainly on the southern elements, and in particular, up against Gary's team. So they had, there was definitely more than parity on those guys.
So we had a troop of SAS guys on the ground, 3 times their number were neutralised.
Right, so 3 times the enemy force. The enemy force was
3 times the number of the SAS force.
28 times 3.
So just given the amount of the weight of fire and the volume of fire that was coming from the other side, and we've seen this a lot in this war, they put a lot of lead down range, but they don't have much success. Are they bad shots?
No, actually, that's a good point. From the analysis we did from at the end of the operation, the group that was operating in Chinatu were actually very, very well trained. So they were foreign fighters moving into the area and using Chinatu as a jump-off distribution node. These weren't low-level fighters who had been told by the Taliban to carry a gun and try and kill a coalition soldiers. They were actually very sophisticated in their security. They were very sophisticated in their tactics. As per the Commando position, they spent the majority of the day doing a detailed reconnaissance of their positions, and then they were able to coordinate, which is quite a significant job, to coordinate fires onto all of their Commando positions at the same time. And they were actually very fanatical. I put it down to the training of the guys, both the Commandos and the SAS guys, and the experience. So a lot of these guys this isn't their first outing. They know what it's like to be shot at, and they know what they need to do to make sure that they can survive, get into a position, and then return effective fire. So I wouldn't say that these guys in particular are poor shots, no. And the fact that the way that they'd sighted their machine guns and their fire discipline was actually very good. I think they were just outmatched on the day by a superior force, mate.
What you say foreign fighters? What nationalities?
No, not Afghan.
Not Afghan. Pakistan.
Or they may have been trained. They may be Afghans trained elsewhere.
Just from a battle strategy point of view, my knowledge is limited to video games probably, but it seemed when things were particularly dire, often there was air support. Is there a reason why that isn't called in more often? Is it to avoid civilian casualties, or is it resources? It just seemed when they came in, it was a bit of a game changer.
I'll get Mick to talk about parts of that, but from my point of view, the Shah Wali Kot offensive was the biggest show in town, so there was no shortage of air support. And in actual fact, the amount of Apaches that we had thrown at us and other support elements was significant. It comes down to the commander on the ground and his discretion on whether or not to use that capability.
Yeah, and look, some of it's about what we're trying to achieve. If you demonstrate overwhelming force straight up, you're not going to actually be able to identify anything. If you don't identify it, then you're not going to be able to achieve a whole lot being in there. So you've got to be discretionary.
Would the key Taliban leaders lead earlier as well? That demonstration.
No, it's a hypothetical.
And one other thing, I don't know, I was looking correctly, there didn't seem to be helmets on the guys jumping out of the helicopter that we saw. Is that normal?
The guys all, I need to confirm that, but To me, we had a policy where the commanders need to make that decision. And they, not everything is cut and dried. And if they needed to increase their body force protection, then the commander on the ground would make that. But there is a compromise. I'm moving away from the helmet issue here, but if you weigh yourself down with so much stuff, you're actually an easier target to shoot. But I'm pretty sure the guys would have had their
I think the other
helmets.
factor there is that the footage is from an overwatch position going into the high ground where I think the anticipated temperature was quite high as well. The assault elements going in, in the low ground definitely would have had all their equipment on.
Is that a key factor in the end of the day when they're escaping as well? They've only got an AK-47 in their roads. They're running flat chat. You can't really keep up with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, everything's a compromise. If you want to move fast and light, you've got to drop some gear, therefore increase risk to yourself. And battle is not black and white, and I never second guess a guy who's been in battle, because the noise, the sounds, the smell, the confusion, his understanding of the environment, what's going on, his overwhelming amount of information coming in, he's going to make the decision that he thinks is best and right at that time, at that place. You can't second guess that, 3 or 4 days down the line in a clinical environment. You can learn some lessons from it, but I tell you can't replicate the feeling that the guys are going through, and the commanders in particular, making those calls.
Are you surprised by the lack of casualties on your side from such an intense operation?
No, I'm not. We have a better force. We have a better force. Australian Special Operations Command, the best soldiers in the world.
In a conflict where the coverage has been dominated by IEDs and roadside bombs, how much of a morale boost has it been for the ADF for having a successful operation?
Absolutely. And we had lost a couple of Australians up in Tarankout prior to this operation, and parts of this operation was for them. We take that job very, very seriously. Our job is to enhance the force protection of our other Australian comrades and other coalition partners, and every death means something. And therefore, we will go out and make sure that the environment is safe for them to operate.
Can I ask almost in that context, Gary, you're credited, if that's the term, with killing a number of the insurgents on that day. Reflecting on killing people in a foreign country, how do you view that on reflection, what you did that day when you were on duty?
It was either kill or be killed, I guess. They're trying to kill me or the people around me, so they won't be neutralised quickly or efficiently. It was either me or them. I've got no remorse over it all.
It's a good question. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if you look after your mate on the left and you look after your mate on your right, that's the most important thing at that time and place. And if everyone's doing that, then you'll get through.
Can I just get a specific comment from Major and Gary on what it means to have this battle be awarded a battle honour, given that so few have been awarded recently?
I'm very, very honoured to receive it, to be part of it, part of history.
I think it's quite humbling. There's it's difficult because there's a lot that goes on, a lot of battles that are occurring that people aren't necessarily that people don't know about, and obviously the nature of special operations mean that we don't really talk about it. So in that regard, it's both humbling, but it's also I guess an acknowledgement of a lot of the unacknowledged actions that do go on.
Were there insurgent prisoners wounded, captured?
So most of the, in fact, are we going to go into any of that?
We don't generally talk about insurgent wounded, and we're not talking about insurgent deaths in theatre either. If the Australian forces came across somebody who was wounded on the ground, then we would treat them, but we just didn't encounter anyone on the
The boys are well trained under the laws of armed conflict. If there's a wounded enemy, then he's treated in accordance with the laws of armed conflict. Same with the way that we process individuals who are detained as a result of the operations.
Were there prisoners taken, just unwounded?
None in Tizak.
Yeah, and there was, I don't know, there were no taken in Shinatu.
Whatever those sorts of things. Is this Afghanistan war equivalent?
It'll be one of those. I understand that there are other, the Chief of Army spoke about the process that the Battle Honours Committee is going through at the moment. So, there's been some significant other stoushes around. This is a notable one. It meets all the requirements for a battle. To me, a battle needs to link to the attainment of the campaigning or a campaign approach. That's not to say that other fights that the enemy has arrayed, we've got into a decent fight like Long Tan. This should be one of those significant battles as a marker for the Afghan campaign. And the important part of it is now to take some of the lessons that we've identified and inculcate those into the broader army so that we're a better army as a result of it. We're not just coming back to Australia. We're going to be a harder, stronger, smarter, more sophisticated army as a result of this.
So a question for Gary and for the Major. The ceremony's tomorrow. What's going to be like with your Major proceedings?
The ceremony tomorrow is for a special
Yes.
so these guys will be at the Commando one.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry. The one in June then. What's it going to, what will be like? Are you excited? Having everybody back there? How much of a day, a special day will it be for you?
Yeah, look, it'll be. It's always good to get back to and see the guys and get everyone back together. It does make you reflect on the guys that didn't get there. It won't be the activity.
How do you feel, both Gary and Major? Like when you touch down on the ground that first time, what's going through? What are you feeling? Is it adrenaline? Is it nerves? Are you pumped up? Are you shit scared? What's the sort of feeling? What's going through your mind?
I think adrenaline's probably the biggest contributing factor, yeah.
How do you manage that? Does it sort of tire you out? Does it just keep you going?
I think long term it does tire you out, but I think it just keeps you going, keeps you going, yeah.
I think that. Sorry, I think the other point there is that it's just drilled so instinctively into the guys what to do. When the helo touches down, everyone knows what needs to be done and gets on with it. So you don't really notice those other things because it's outside of the mission at that point. So.
It validated that our training during the pre-9/11 period has set us up for success for the post-9/11 period. I think our training has advanced absolutely. Our leadership is demonstrated by the courage at the trooper and at the private level all the way through. And I think we are now in a sophisticated space with the way that we manage the information systems that we have, all source information that comes in, but it comes down to the fusion of that information to achieve a practical outcome. And that's the role that we have when we're targeting key leaders. That's a very sophisticated approach, and that would be one thing that I would like to make sure that we are able to maintain as we commence the drawdown.
You have been unmanned. Sorry, what role did unmanned aircraft play in this situation?
Yeah, we had unmanned assets.
Were
They provide situational awareness for us on the battlefield, and it's part of a capability that I use as a commander to build my situational awareness. Now, it's not so that I can tell Mick that he should go left or right. It informs me for the steps 3 or 4 down the track. So whilst he's in the close fight, I should be setting up the right conditions for him to seamlessly slide into the next piece to create a degree of tempo on the enemy that he can't think and move as quick as us. And that's how we use those assets to get the intellectual, cognitive leap on him.
This is, you're in command of a lot of people who are extremely exposed from the way you've described it. What did it feel like for you? Had you ever been in a situation like this before? Did you feel at some stage that you had to steel yourself to avoid losing your own nerve and pulling people out? What did it feel like personally?
Personally, I have a great deal of trust and confidence in the guys. This is not my first fight. I've been in a few fights as a commander. I operate under a mission command construct. That is, I give the guys clear direction on where they need to, what they need to achieve, give them the resources that they require, and then I'll leave it to them to achieve the results. And 9 times out of 10, they surprise me with what they come up with, and it's a far better option than what I would have come up with. So, a degree of trust, and I have that confidence that guys Mick and Gary are able to achieve what we require. When we started getting reports of casualties, it's a bump in the road, but there's no time to stop. You've got to be thinking about what we're going to do about it and how we're going to make sure that we achieve the outcome.
This was a very significant defeat for the insurgents. Are you aware of any recriminations down the days later? Was there sort of radio chatter saying we really got our butts kicked down there? How did this happen?
Yeah, the Taliban, the first thing they did was plaster on the internet that they had a significant win against a coalition force and that we'd killed a lot of civilians. We knew that was coming. That's a schoolboy sort of approach. That's why we take a lot of time to make sure that we confirm, the people that we have engaged and neutralised are indeed enemy combatants, and we're comfortable in that approach. We did get indications that, they took a pretty heavy hit.
When you make contact with civilians, do you have a sense of what ordinary Australians outside the Defence Force, what sense they have of what's been going on in Afghanistan? Do you have a sense they're well informed or have any idea of what we've been up to?
I always know they've been informed partially, but whether it's to the right extent, I'm not too sure. But how much information is passed on, I don't really consider or think about it.
Did you get a sense that people just have no idea what sort of things you've been doing?
In some cases, yeah. Realistically, yeah.
Is that also your impression that we're having a conversation about stuff we have, in a sense, of privileged access to some of this information? But do you get an idea as you go around the place that Australians have any idea what you're up to?
No, look, I don't think there'd be a wide understanding of exactly what's going on over there, but nor is that necessarily an issue of itself.
Do you feel like you're supported, or do you feel like the country's pretty divided about it?
No, I think we're well supported.
Michael, can you just actually talk us through how the battle unfolded for you? How did it start? What were you doing during the intense period?
Yeah, it's hardly, it's a day, it's a whole day of activity, to draw it out. We went in by night. We cleared, simultaneously cleared around, I think it was around 11 different known locations. And then we went into, some what we call strong points up and down the valley. We weren't in a large defensive position. We're in strong points based around a couple of key locations and key terrain that we needed to hold. And Gary's team, supported us through, having that, holding that key ground, and which from where he could observe everything and report on any movement moving through the area. And from there we started engaging with the population, and then once that became untenable due to activity, then we switched to the fight and switched back and back to the fight. It's it's the nature of it.
Were you leading a section or a unit or part of the...
No, so I lead the company, but we were grouped. So we had so there was myself, my command team, and we had two other teams that also had, we were in mortar roll. So, we had our own organic, protection in that regard as well.
If we were to try and, if we were just to try and quantify the intensity of it, can you tell us something like how many magazines did you go through?
Yeah, look, I went through a few magazines, which is unusual for the OC. It's probably not the right place for the OC to be going through magazines. Look, we went in. We went in prepared, knowing that it was potential to be a pretty large engagement. So we were comfortable with what we went through.
Can you spot it on the video, guys? Either of you that you just saw today? Do you recognise any of that footage?
No, that's from over in Tezac. Yeah, so that's over in the other valley. So we could hear that. the following day. But no, that's not where we were. So.
Is that the nature of a modern fight, as you were describing, as you were describing before? That it's not like an old-fashioned set-piece battle that everybody from the OC on the ground is likely to be engaged in shooting.
Yeah, I mentioned the idea of a full spectrum approach, and just mentioned it. You know, one moment he's off a helicopter, he's cleared through, he's probably talking to some locals so that he can use their compound to hold up in and use as a strong point. And then they're in this close combat, and the OC is shooting several magazines. That implies how close the combat is. Because as an OC, he's got these units out there and he needs the bigger picture. But if he's fighting for his own life, it shows how close the combat was. And then it stops. And so he's going down to talk to the key leaders and having a shura with one of the mullahs down there and having a cup of chai. And then, you know, maybe 45 minutes later, he's back in the fight again. All in the same period of time. It just highlights the complexity of the fight and the agility of mind that the guys need to transfer very rapidly, you know, for survival to achieve the mission.
Those who had tea coming out his eyeballs, how much tea
Yeah,
did you drink?
Yeah, I had my fair share of chai sitting down speaking to people, but it's essential. You can't connect with a population if you're not prepared to sit down. I have no idea how many.
How many bullets, how many cups of tea?
Yeah, that's right.
This is Afghan culture. This is how they solve problems. And if, you know, from a Western point of view, we'll go, hey mate, I want to do a deal today, and, you know, we signed up, we're good to go. That's not how they do it. It might take you 3 days of tea drinking to understand the real issues of the problem and then come to an agreement. Okay? And that's important from understanding from the Australian public. This is not Sydney. This is Afghanistan, and it's very unique with its own cultural norms and peculiarities. And again, I take my hat off to the guys that they're able to do that. You know, this is their culture, and we respect it. And by respecting their culture, we'll achieve long-term results.
You come off that route through the back, where the Canberra was obviously the crossroads to a certain degree. The sense is that that's been a long-term change that you've effected there. Have they simply shifted to a different route? That they simply go through another valley, or is there a profound disenabling, if you like?
Yeah. You're exactly right. It's about surfaces and gaps. If we put a surface here, then they're going to move around it. And the insurgency is like water. You know, you put a dam here, they're going to move around it. And that's just the nature of warfare. And right from the beginning, I said this is the ultimate clash of human will. And you know, they want to inflict their will on us, and we want to inflict their will on them. And they're going to keep going to manoeuvre around to achieve their end state. But you're right. You know, but the key to this is the population. And if we can make their route so much further and harder and longer to get to the population, then that's a good thing, because we've got the vital ground, which is the people of Afghanistan.
Colonel, you mentioned during your earlier presentation about in Tizak, the captain there, the commanding officer on the ground would have been within his rights to withdraw. I wonder if you could talk about just a little bit, flesh out about somehow sort of conditions were much worse than they expected, what they'd sort of been expecting to go into and what they actually...
Yeah, so that troop commander, and I don't think he gets enough acknowledgement actually. And we talk about the weight of decision making, you know, he makes the decision whether these guys live or die. And if it had gone bad, he would have held that responsibility of killing the troop. So it's a huge responsibility. But you've got to do what you know is right, and you've got to have confidence, and you've got to have courage. And it's like a rugby game. If you go in half for the tackle, then you're going to get hurt. So that young troop commander made the decision, we're going to keep doing this. But also based on the feeds from his sergeants that are coming back. They had done several missions prior to this, and actually quite a few missions that were very focused and very quick to achieve the killer capture of several key leaders. So the initial thought was it would be a similar sort of mission. 2 hours, turn around, and we'll bring back the key leaders. We had not anticipated that the situations and the shaping operations were so successful to draw all those additional fighters in. But he made the call at the end of the day.
You might limit it to, say, 4 or 5 more questions, and that's about it, in order to get on with our days. Otherwise, you'll have filing problems pretty shortly.
Gary, look, if I can ask about the helicopter crash, I know it is obviously a fairly sensitive issue. Do you remember anything at all about the crash? The moment, the events leading up to it?
I got no recollection at all. Even a week prior to, a week and a half prior to, I got no memory of it at all. Even a few months afterwards, I got no recollection. Yeah.
And what was the morale like when you heard about the crash? I mean, obviously it was touched on earlier. Was it like, you know, like when you lasted a certain amount of time before we heard about this crash? What was it like?
No, I think you can imagine what it's like to know you've just lost guys, and also, you know, you've got some guys that are seriously wounded, but at the same time, you're still on operations. You've still got missions to do, and you know, we had some significant missions to do, you know, following that crash, and you know, that's the thing. You got hardened professional, you know, special operators there, and you just get on with the job.
A couple of questions.
Gary, how are you going in your recovery?
I'm getting there. Still going through the recovery process now, 3 days a week. So, won't be before I'm back at work one day. Still getting there.
You want to get
Would you
back
like to
to
stay
work?
in the army?
Eventually, yeah. Yeah, I want to stay in the army. I will stay in the army, yeah.
Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Nice.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Gary, were you a sergeant at the time this happened?
Yes.
And that was his third rotation over to Afghanistan as well.
Yeah, Gary was the team commander of that team that was up there.
I'm aware that the SOTG subsequent rotations have gone back into Chinatu and they've found the area quite benign, largely. But in reality, it's about the people wanting an alternative future, you know, which in my mind is free from Taliban intimidation. It's not us, what the coalition and what the Afghan government is producing. And so there's going to be a degree of risk to the locals, but at the end of the day, Taliban government here in Chinatu, and we saw that up in Gizab. You know, it was the Gizab, the population up in Gizab that did the uprising. We flew in, for example, there is to provide a buffer to allow the fledgling government of Afghanistan and the people to get on their feet. And so we provide that.
And I guess the part that's missed is there's months of planning and analysis that goes into the conduct of an operation of this scale. So tangible benefits we got was we actually got a better understanding of the tribal you know, breakup of the area. We understand, you know, there were constant you know, small skirmishes, there was probing action, you know, then it, you know, built up at several different times to treat them more heavily as they were withdrawing. However, the choice was made, and I think rightly so, that the threat to the civilian population and infrastructure was to the guys that, you know, they can cope with those sort of conditions.
Gary, we heard there about just how extraordinarily difficult.
We were all tense. Just very hot and arduous. The condition we were trying to fight in. But it's more just part and parcel with my job, I think. I was just pretty much getting used to it, yeah.
Memory, like, is it the heat, the smell, the sound?
More so the heat, yeah. Prefer the heat and just the condition we were trying to work in and fight in. Yeah, it's just very dry and dusty.
You were in the sniper position.
Yep. My job was essentially the eyes and ears for the OC, trying to give him as much information as I can so he could paint his own picture on what was going on the ground. They couldn't physically see us personally until they were pretty much right on top of us. They knew we were there, but they couldn't quite establish where we were and how many were there. Small enough.
Yeah, there's a team up there.
Yeah.
How would you characterise the intensity of the fighting compared with other similar situations?
Very intense, yeah. Very intense.
And you fired the first shot of all this?
And, you know, been fired at before, but not to that extent, not where, you know, all up the valley.
They fight, it was parity. So, you know, I said the force there was about 100 for parity. The force in Tizak, we're probably looking 3 times their number. Fires onto all of their commando positions at the same time. And they were actually very fanatical. I put it down to the training of the guy. One was actually very good. I think they were just outmatched on the day by a superior force, mate. But there is a compromise. I'm moving away from the helmet issue here, but if you weigh yourself down with so much stuff, you're actually an easier target to shoot. But I'm pretty sure the guys would have had there.
It was either kill or be killed, I guess. They're trying to kill me or people around me, so they won't be neutralised quickly or efficiently. It's either me or them. I've got no remorse over it all.
Hey, when it comes down to it, if you look after your mate on the left and you look after your mate on your right, that's the most important thing at that time and place. And if everyone's doing that, this is a notable one. It meets all the requirements for a battle. You know, to me, a battle needs to.
I think adrenaline's probably the biggest contributing factor. Yeah.
How does that how do you manage that? Does it sort of tire you out? Does it just keep you going? Does it
I think long term it does tire you out, but I think it just keeps you going. Keeps it going. Yeah.
Is demonstrated by the courage at the trooper and at the private level all the way through, and I think we had unmanned assets. They provide situational awareness for us on the battle to create a degree of tempo on the enemy that he can't think and move as quick as us, and that's how we use those assets to get the intellectual cognitive leap on him. This is not my first fight. I've been in a few fights as a commander. I operate under a mission command construct that surprised me with what they come up with, and it's a far better option than what I would have come up with. So, a degree of trust, and I have that confidence that guys Mick and.
I always know they've been informed partially, but whether it's to the right extent, I'm not too sure. But how much information is passed on, I don't really consider or think about it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a whole day of activity. To draw it out. We went in by night. We cleared. Simultaneously cleared around. I think it was around 11 different known locations. That's from over in Tizac. Yeah, so that's over in the other valley. So we could hear that the following day, but no, that's not where we were. So the population, and then once that became untenable due to activity, then we switched to the fight and switched back to the fight. It's the nature of it.
Were you leading